What food isn't worth the effort to be homemade? I remember making batches of handmade tots as a prep cook in Chicago. Honestly, one of the first things I ever made professionally in the industry. What an absolute fucking tedium. Roast potatoes, let them cool, grate them on the rubble coop, mix in potato starch, parmesan, grated cheddar and some seasoning. Work them into some bullshit tiny barrel shape. Way harder than you think. Make them wrong and they explode or fall apart in the fryer. The entire time a very angry Romanian man named Caesar was barking at me about how shit I am. Fuck homemade tater tots. The trick is that you need to ignore every single recipe on the entire web and just find the jarred sauces or in some cases, pad thai seasoning in powdered form in jars. Augmenting with a combination of the two, yes, I'm indulgent, will hit all the flavors in the correct way. From there it's just a matter of throwing the rice noodles, veg and protein together and mixing it up. I have the luxury of experimenting with this stuff since I live close to the Super 88, but you might be able to find packaged things like it online. I've been wanting to make my own Coca-Cola using coca leaves just to see how it'll taste, feel. The leaves alone are completely safe, are a bit more mild in effects than caffeine and are used for a variety of ailments. It's just when you take a million leaves and extract that 1% ahem certain alkaloid is where you get all your health, addiction problems. You can get the decoced leaves easy but that kinda goes against the point. I used to know of a site that had the unadulterated leaves straight from Peru a few years ago but I'm not sure if they're still in business. Can't link for obvious reasons, but if I make my own Coke, I'll be sure to get those leaves first lol. I once made my own Cheez-Its. Does that count? Not especially difficult, but I basically made what amounted to a half box for about $20. Granted I put some great cheese in them, and they were absolutely great. Just time consuming. I should probably add, I made the recipe from Make the Bread, by the butter, since it has a reputation in this thread. I love making crackers. Just throw some flour, water, oil, and whatever spices you want. I often do paprika, cumin, fennel, and some sort of chili, into a food processor, roll and bake. But then, I'm allergic to a lot of store-bought crackers, sunflower, canola, rapeseed, so it may be more that I like having control and getting to eat crackers at all. I was in the exact same predicament. Tried the sauce and loved it. Spent the longest time trying to look for a decent recipe, and one that has ingredients I could easily find. Eventually settled on the shortcut method of using chipotle peppers in an abo sauce and blending that up with some mayo. Broke my heart that it actually tasted so good. There is a brand, I think it's Gerardo's. They make small cans of chipotle peppers essentially preserved in their own juices. Take a few cups of mayo and 1-2 of those cans depending on amount needed and spice level. Blend them up and you're good to go with chipotle sauce that's way better than just powder. I've done the same after getting Chang's Momofuku, although I've done it a handful of times. The broth with 10+ pounds of bones I'd been saving for half a year. That there, pork shoulder, cured pork belly, etc. I made it all except the noodles. Found some good fresh ones. It was a lot of work. When I was finally eating it I just kept thinking, wow, this is great, but I could be eating homemade pho that takes 1/10 the time and is arguably better and definitely healthier. I've never made it myself but I watched Babish make Baked Alaska on his channel and that looked like a real chore for what amounted to a $15 ice cream cake from Baskin-Robbins. Edit, so I forgot Babish's Baked Alaska was part of his Sims video and not an independent video, so if anyone wanted to watch it here you go. https://d.b/z4bwb8_k7 T=370. Recently my housemate took a shot at a full from scratch baked Alaska. It was absolutely gorgeous. He got the fire on it perfectly and everything. The taste too was incredible. I was so happy he decided to share it all, and he was immensely proud of having pulled it off successfully. But soon as we dug in to eat he said, "Enjoy that. I'm never making this again because it was such an incredible pain in the ass to make all of it from scratch. Honestly, they're not hard to make. I make them with my mom every year after Thanksgiving. She even makes them alone. If you're not used to making them, they're hard, but once you get into the groove of what to do, it goes by quickly. One thing we learned is to not cook them and to just wrap in freezer paper and freezer bags, pop in freezer, then steam a dozen whenever we want them. We make about 8-10 dozens per year and it lasts just as long. My aunt was a professional baker for a long time. According to her, if you shop at Costco, the answer is cheesecake. She was always particularly good at making cheesecake, and she fully believes there's no reason to put in the effort because the ones they sell are that good. I haven't had her homemade cheesecake in a long time, so I can't compare. But those Costco cheesecakes are the bomb. Also, my cat loves to sleep in the lids. Edit, cat tax. Croissants. I spent hours trying to make those ones once and the result tasted fine, but they weren't croissants. Getting the layered puff pastry right is beyond my skills, and it's an absurd amount of work. Now I just buy some if I want some. Edit, people, please stop suggesting Pillsbury. I'll buy them at a bakery, but the ones Pillsbury sells in cans are a crime against bakery, a crime anyways. As a former employee of a traditional-style French bakery, owner is third-generation baker. Traditional recipes, you are absolutely correct. Pillsbury croissant rolls are most definitely not croissants. They are a heinous imposter and should be stopped. If you really want to make your own, you need to get a specific flour. When the supply lines were backed up and our flour was not delivered, we didn't make baguettes or croissants because the baker refused to just go to a local grocery store and buy flour. So, I live in Canada, but I used to, and hope to again, be in Amsterdam several times a year for business. One of my favorite foods is kroketten. For those unaware, anyone who's not Dutch, pretty much, they're sort of these deep-fried seasoned meat and gravy logs. They're crispy on the outside, gooey, meaty, and a little creamy on the inside, and just delicious. The problem is they don't exist in Canada. They just don't. No one's even heard of them. So a few years back, I decided to try making them. Now, they turned out perfectly, just like something you'd get at Fibble or wherever. But the process took 3 days. You need beef stock for the recipe, and you need cooked beef to shred up. So I figured the easiest way would be to make stock using some beef roast pieces, then shred up the beef pieces after. The beef also has to cool before it can be used, so that was day one. Making the stock and cooling everything in the fridge overnight. Next, you have to make a roux, so you're cooking flour, butter, milk, and stock. Then once that's cooked, you added the shredded beef, onions, spices, etc., and that also has to cool so it firms up and can be shaped onto logs. So that's day 2. Day 3 was rolling out the logs, dipping them in egg, then breadcrumbs, then a second layer, and letting those chill for a few hours in the fridge. Finally, you deep fry them. Like I said, turned out perfectly, but took 3 days, and because they're deep fried, they get soggy if you try to refrigerate them, so you can really only eat them right away. So 3 days of work for a single meal. Loved them, but I'm never doing that again. Me too. There's a particular restaurant near me that does the most incredible seafood risotto. I make risottos at home, but I'm the only one in my household that likes fish. There's no point in me going through the faff. Plus there's no way I could make mine as good as theirs, and I'd have to do the dishes afterwards. So I'll just enjoy it once or twice a year when I go there, drink wine and ask the nice chap to bring me delicious goodies. Honestly, it's an enjoyable journey if you like to cook, but it can be an all-day process if you want to do it the traditional way. It starts with a stock pot and beef bones, and you slowly build the flavor into a few delicious bowls of flavorful goodness. I found that I could eliminate some time using a pressure cooker, but that also affects the quality of the broth over the long run. On balance, I'd much rather pay $8 and have a delicious bowl served up to me in a matter of minutes. Not Chinese but Vietnamese. I used to make 6 courses dinner for 4 back in high school, the daily version of 6 courses, If rice counted as one, there is always a stew, which is mostly idle time, while you prep stir-fry and cold dish. Cold dishes will be finished first, just waiting for final decoration at the end. Soup will be started middle of the cooking time, putting on low, deep fry or pan fried next, then vegetable stir-fry. So, rice, stew, deep or pan fry, stir-fry or steam vegetable, cold salad or cold meat. I finished my dinner earlier than my parents, so I will prep fruits for dessert while waiting for them. All it takes is an hour of well-focused and well-timed tasks. Definitely doable. I found an Eastern European bakery that had this on the menu. I ordered it. They went in the back and brought out a pre-packaged, frozen cake that was in a faded box that looked like it had been personally smuggled out of the USSR. Feeds 8, they said, keep frozen. I'm sure it was cheaper and better than if I had made it myself, but after wanting an authentic one for so long, I just wasn't expecting authentic as in what babushka ate as a little girl and was thankful for. Damn it to be my introduction. Angel food cake. I once made one for a friend's birthday from scratch. It took a long time to make, and when it came out of the oven I was excited because it tasted exactly like the box mix angel food cake. And then I realized that I spent 7x the money on the scratch ingredients, and it took me so much longer to make the cake from scratch than it does from the box, and I promised myself I would never make it from scratch again. Oh my god, I was out with my sister once at a bakery in deep COVID times and she bought a make-it-yourself cake kit from the bakery, one of their recipes. She read through the directions and decided she wasn't skilled enough, so she passed it off to me. I'm an ambitious baker and she taps out a box cake. Turned out it was an angel food cake. All I had was a bundt pan, and I spent the whole damn day whisking powdered egg whites. It kind of tasted like feet, but it had this amazing marshmallow meringue topping. Topping was worth it, cake was not. The real answer is any cuisine you don't make a lot or often. If you make Italian regularly, you'll have a lot of stuff to make most of it. But suddenly switching to another culinary tradition that requires you to buy everything can make it expensive, and then you have a bunch of stuff you don't use regularly. Some of it lasts, some of it doesn't. Also a huge amount of things if you're just feeding yourself. Everything is made for families, so sometimes even basic stuff produces a lot of waste because you don't want to eat the same thing for 4 meals because you could only buy the stuff in those quantities. Takeout is often strictly portioned for one person, makes it very tempting. Kimchi. It's messy and take a whole day. There's a reason why Koreans set aside a day for making it and make enough to last half a year at least. There was a farmer's market near me where they were selling artisanal kimchi and I just laughed. Making kimchi is the opposite of small batch. You make as much as you can possibly store and control how quickly they ferment. I get it though. If you grew up eating the one your mom made from a family recipe, other kimchi will taste different and some might even taste not that great for you. But honestly, it's worth cutting that tether and getting used to factory-made kimchi, still made by a bunch of old ladies except in an industrial scale, because once you get used to it, it's still pretty good. I will however forever hold in my heart the memory of kimchi making days when my mom would work the whole day salting cabbages and mixing up the stuffing, and make me a plate of the fresh stuffing wrapped in the wilted, salted cabbage leaves. It's an amazing treat only available on the day they make kimchi. A whole Indian food menu for 12 people! 2-hour prep time, 1 hour cook time, a delicious meal, but I promptly fell asleep after dinner in my chair because I was exhausted. I never even tried the Indian booze because I was busy running around like my hair was on fire. I made the best night, though I have never had any better than I made it that night. I wish I could remember what I did to make it so good. Yeah, I'ma disagree with you there. Handmade every Christmas. Maybe just due to tradition, but 1000% better than anything from a store frozen. You can buy authentic ones here from a few takeout places, but they're somewhere in the range of $20/dozen. Last Christmas with 4 ppl making them, we made many Ziploc bags in an afternoon. We did about 4 different types. Sourdough bread. at least for me. I don't want to have to maintain a sourdough starter for something I will not make that often. Let the bread gurus have their thing. I'm content with my quick breads. Edit. I love the range of everyone's replies. Half of you are like, easiest thing ever, only takes a minute per year. The other half are like, it's like literally raising children. I love sushi, but after a few attempts I've learned that I hate making it. Getting the rice-fish ratio just right and cutting each piece nicely is annoyingly difficult. My compromise on this is making a rice bowl topped with fish and avocado, donburi. It's basically the same thing as sushi, just without the chef spending hours rolling seaweed. Got tuna? Make tekkadon. Authentic pho. It calls for all kinds of spices your typical home kitchen doesn't have. Star anise. Whole cardamom. Requires slow-simmered broth, plus things like tripe and tendon that are hard to find. Add to that the fact that it's highly perishable, doesn't freeze well at all. It's just a lot of work to serve one person. I'll occasionally make a streamlined version with packaged bone broth, shaved beef, rice noodles and some spices, but it's nowhere near authentic. I personally keep those ingredients in stock at all times for various dishes every week, but I agree it definitely is not worth it if you're buying it for a one-time use. A bag of each of those spices at my local Asian store is already $2 for each. Then add in the expensive cost of beef these days and the garnishes that go bad quickly. A bowl of pho is only $10.15 depending on the area. My Vietnamese mom just uses the pre-packaged pho flavoring powder. You can find it at an Asian store or Amazon. She cooks Viet food every day but not ones that use those ingredients, so she also sees it as a waste of money to make from scratch despite growing up in Vietnam. I never get to humble brag, but my girlfriend actually makes a killer sushi. Unfortunately we haven't found a good place for the properly grated raw salmon, so it's mostly veggie rolls or imitation crab or whatever else we can find, but she makes it very similar to restaurant style. It's much cheaper, but it's a whole ordeal. I'd still prefer to go out and get some, especially when it's all you can eat. I made homemade General Tso's chicken, chopped raw chicken, breaded it with egg, flour, and panko crumbs, then fried it in oil. Made the sauce with chili peppers, sugar, soy sauce and other stuff on the stove. Was a ton of work when I could have gotten the same or better tasting Chinese takeout food without touching a ton of raw chicken for 20 minutes and figuring out what to do with a can of used cooking oil. I consider myself an advanced level home cook. I don't pretend to be a chef, but I have been cooking my whole life. I have several, puff pastry, ketchup, you can never improve on Heinz, biscuits, I've tried and tried. Even my best biscuits were as good as the Pillsbury kind. Why go through all of that work? Unless I'm cooking for a huge crowd, then it's worth it. Wine, I'm a home brewer. I can make fantastic beer. But wine, can I make it better than a decent $10 bottle from the store? I've tried, and the answer is no. This video from Adam Raguzi helps massively improve homemade pizza. https://f.b/sdpczjw2xm4. A few key items. Invest in a pizza steel and set the oven as hot as it will go. Give the oven sufficient time to heat up the steel. You have a fighting chance at getting the crust to brown on the bottom. Make the doughs a couple of days in advance and keep them in the fridge. The difference between a fresh dough and one that's been in the fridge for 3 days is huge. Use whole milk low moisture mozzarella. When you take the pizza out of the oven, set it on a cooling rack for a few minutes. My homemade pizzas are good enough now that I don't feel compelled to order pizza. It's also not a huge operation the day of, because I've made those in the sauce in advance. Depending on how far you want to go in the homemade, basically any cut piece of meat. I knew a lot of hunters, but most of them didn't cut their prey before cooking it. They mostly gives them to the butcher who would then gives them a part of their meat back and sell the rest. But this is due to the fact that most of my hunter friends hunted more than what they could eat. Most of the hunters around me will dress and hang the deer themselves, but they take it to the butcher shop and get sausages, jerky and a bunch of other stuff that requires specialized equipment to make. There is a family of 5 who are all hunters, and the deer they get during hunting season are basically all the meat they eat for the year.